Donovan Mitchell, he's a bad man.
This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland part of the lane, lob to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, a last-minute ankle soreness for Max Strus meant that DeAndre Hunter's Cavaliers debut came in the starting lineup. The Cavs got a win over one of the best defenses in the league in the Minnesota Timberwolves and had a lot of fun doing it. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I'm about to have a lot of fun talking to my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
They put on the clamps. They clamped them.
I really enjoyed. I thought it was fitting that for the first time, DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen played together for a shift. The opposing team did not score a bucket.
They didn't make a field goal for the first 9 minutes.
It was a lot of fun to watch. Obviously we ended the last podcast talking about what we wanted to see from the starting lineup. We also, joked that a lot of times those decisions have been made for Kenny Atkinson. We haven't really seen him pivot with who his starter is going to be based on, performance.
Why stop now, brother man?
It has just been 100% an availability thing all season. It was funny. I was listening to the No Dunks guys talk about the Cavs, and don't blame them for not watching every single game. But they're like, yeah, the Cavs, they use a lot of different starting lineups based on matchup and whatnot. I'm like, nope, it is strictly availability, my guy.
It's the season of Wally Pipp.
It truly, truly is. And getting to see DeAndre Hunter out there, of course, I'm not going to sit here and victory lap over an 11-minute sample. It's going to take 10, 15 games for us to really get a feel for how this is going to look, how the chemistry is going to build, what combinations work and don't work. But I think you at least got to see some of the proof of concept of what DeAndre Hunter can bring to this lineup. And a few possessions in that first shift that really jump out to me where he did not get a statistic on the play, but you felt his impact. There was one where Rudy Gobert got an offensive rebound, and it was just Hunter between he and the basket. I saw these arms reaching up to kind of deter the shot at the rim, and it took me a second to realize that wasn't Evan Mobley. It was DeAndre Hunter's long arms, and Rudy just kind of saw that, and he passed the ball out. There was another possession where he closed out on Anthony Edwards, and he gave up the ball, same with Naz Reid. And we have, I think what we've seen from the Cavs is that the entire team has been committed to the defensive end. Everyone is playing as hard as they can for the most part. There's the lulls here and there, but everyone is committed to this team concept of defense, and I think we've had wings that play really good, sound defense. DeAndre Hunter is the first wing that we've had that actually deters shots. With his length, he is going to change whether or not an opponent is even going to get that shot up. And to see it kind of within the infrastructure that the Cavs have defensively was so exciting.
Yeah, it was really one of those things where it was just a perfect proof of concept to start off the DeAndre Hunter era. And, we talk about other guys that the Cavs, were linked to, guys like Cam Johnson. I think both me and you were kind of like a little lukewarm on that, only in the sense that, Cam was like an addition of what they already had, like additive to what they already had. And, when you're making a big trade, sometimes you want to inject a different kind of element. And, watching DeAndre Hunter stand up and Anthony Edwards like 3 or 4 possessions in the first 6 minutes of the game did feel like that different element where you go, oh, okay, we couldn't do this way before, and it was just, I mean, the toolsiness was right there. I feel like he played with a certain intensity. I mean, he picked up 5 fouls in this game. Most of them I thought were good. I'm playing hard type of fouls, but like I felt like he felt empowered to challenge at the point of attack with those 2 bigs behind him.
And that was something that Kenny mentioned in his media availability, is that he was going to challenge DeAndre to be more active, to kind of really pursue those steals and blocks and gamble a little bit more. Because when you look at the defensive infrastructure of the Hawks, you have some long, rangy defenders out there, right? Like Dyson Daniels is terrific. But you also have some guys that are going to have breakdowns on that end of the court, right? Trae Young is not going to offer up much resistance at the point of attack. Same goes for Bogey. Like, they have guys that are Vit Krejci, is someone that can struggle on the defensive end. You don't have that same infrastructure, and you're usually playing with just one big that is a dominant defensive presence out there. And I think we've seen over the last few years where these role players go into a different context and it just accentuates their entire game, right? Like, maybe they don't have the best metrics in that spot. PJ Washington going to Dallas comes to mind. A more extreme example would be Derek White going from San Antonio to Boston, where you do some things really, really well, and we feel that the context that we're going to put you in is going to bring your game to another level. And I really do feel like there is the possibility of that with DeAndre Hunter, and that's what's so exciting.
Yeah, I think the PJ Washington comp is really smart and really spot on, because that was another guy who this was a guy we were interested in, in years past, and it was always like, well, can he really hold up on that end of the floor? Because you're playing in Charlotte, a bad defensive team with not the best team collective values on that end of the floor. And then he gets to Dallas, and he's guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a playoff series and doing the best job of anyone they have. And that's a guy who didn't have a reputation as a defender at really any point coming in. Just was a big, long, coordinated dude. And like Hunter, I think, it feels like he has a bit of a head start on that, but I do think this could be a guy that really takes off. We were talking among friends about this trade, and I kind of saw 2 outcomes with a bonus third. Outcome 1 is he continues playing at his career best level, and the Cavs are really happy they did the trade. Outcome 2, he regresses a little bit because he is playing as the best basketball of his career. He hasn't been this good in years past. And so maybe he tails off a little bit. But I kind of felt like the third bonus option was he gets better. He plays better than he's ever played anywhere else because of the context the Cavs allow him to play in. And I said it on the last spot. I think it's an easy to play basketball in Cleveland right now. Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to play defense in Cleveland right now. That doesn't mean you don't have to work hard, but like so much of the context around you allows your job to be simple and allows you to do what you do best. You're protected. And if that third option hits and he goes up another level from what he's shown so far this year over the next 2 years of his contract and hopefully deep into the future, well then, Justin, we got a stew going.
We absolutely do. And Kenny Atkinson postgame mentioned that, you're never sure how integrating a new piece is going to look, if there's going to be miscommunication on the offensive defensive end. And he said, on the defensive end, he described it as perfect, that there wasn't those miscommunications, that his instincts had him in the right spots. And, I don't want to say, to address what you said earlier about Cam Johnson, I wouldn't say I was lukewarm on Cam Johnson. Like, I was very interested
That
in
was a part we were lukewarm about, to be
yeah,
clear.
I was interested in him because I thought he was the best name available. But if you go back to the offseason, DeAndre Hunter was that guy that I kept mentioning because I thought, hey, this is a buy low opportunity. This is a guy who is going to be, from a fit standpoint, we are in a good position to bring the most out of him. And I didn't think that he was available because the Hawks were, the 5 seed for a while there. He was playing the best basketball of his career, even though that they drafted someone first overall with, a draft comp of DeAndre Hunter. I was like, you know what? It can work, right? You can never have too many big wings. But then priorities shifted for them. And, Kobe and the Hawks front office were able to work out a deal that, kind of matched the two timelines that they respectively had. And I forget if it was on this pod or a different one. I was doing too many podcasts leading up to the trade deadline, but I said, if I have to pick between the two, I prefer DeAndre Hunter to Cam Johnson, not only from a cost standpoint, but because I felt like he addressed more of the needs. I feel better about his ability to defend down, to throw length at guys. When Cam Johnson switches onto Darius Garland in our matchups, I don't feel like he's offering resistance in those spots. That's not what he does. He can defend 3 and 4s pretty well, but I wouldn't feel good about throwing him on Anthony Edwards, even within our infrastructure. Like, that wouldn't be what you're asking of him. And DeAndre Hunter,
we reserved that for Sam Merrill.
Yeah, hey, Sam did a
Sam did a good job.
He did a nice job, and
as good as the job can be done.
But that's, there's a prime example, right? Like, even if you're going to like the Sam Merrills of the roster, everyone is committed on the defensive end. If you have a lapse, you're going to hear about it from everybody. And I think when you have that culture of winning, which is one of the things that DeAndre said in his first availability that he was really looking forward to, when you have that, culture of accountability and trying to everyone pull in the same direction, you're more likely to expend that energy on the defensive end than you were in a situation where you're in scramble mode frequently.
Yeah. Again, I've said that I feel like this is the best shell defense in the league. And I feel like that shell got tougher to crack with Hunter. The length is just so apparent. He's just a big dude, He's about as tall as Dean Wade with longer arms. And, as much as we've loved the Dean Wade lineup, on the defensive end of the floor, I think DeAndre just adds a lot, because he also on the other end of the floor can shoot, he can attack a closeout, he can get to the line. He's averaging 6 free throw attempts per 36, which would be, I think, best on the Cavs right now, which goes to show you where the Cavs are in terms of drawing free throws. But he just has all this optionality, and I even though I think both of us were on team keep Max as the starter, and I probably still there, it was really nice to see the first glimpse of okay, here's what it could look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still do feel that our best 5 is with DeAndre at the 3, and I'm an excitable boy. We know this about me, and after already seeing it, I'm kind of ready for this, right? I saw Chris Fedor had a report today that Dean Wade's knee is recovered. He could play. The team is just kind of taking the cautious approach of, hey, the All-Star break's around the corner. Let's give another week off so that you could get to max health. And I kind of expect them to do the same thing for Max Strus here. It's an opportunity to get him some more rest, even though that this isn't a serious injury. All due respect to the Toronto Raptors, that's another matchup that they should win. The Minnesota Timberwolves are a much better team than the Raptors, and we just handled them pretty easily. So I'm kind of okay with it. And if you recall the last episode, my biggest cause of trepidation was if we're starting Hunter and Dean isn't in the lineup, you don't have an option at the 4. And you know what? I'm kind of okay. If we're talking about, let's make the most of these last 30 games or whatever it is, I'm kind of okay that if we run into those instances, let's give Jalen Tyson a little bit of burn here. Let's let him play some small ball 4 because, he's someone that has shown some stuff there. I think you're going to live with some highs and lows in those minutes. But, all due respect to George Niang, you had some highs and lows with him as well in those opportunities. And I just feel like, especially if you're juicing those bench lineups with the shooting of Max Strus and Ty Jerome's out there as a steady hand, and you have one of the guards, and one of the bigs defending as well, I'm kind of okay with letting Jalen Tyson get some burn in those spots.
Well, I still don't think Jalen's going to be in the rotation once the team is healthy.
I am saying strictly when Dean is banged up and not available. That which was my caveat of why you may not want to start Hunter. I'm saying start him. Let's get the chemistry. It's a crash course of Cavs
Man, you
basketball.
changed your mind after one game, after 11 minutes. How about it?
I told you I'm an excitable boy.
You are an excitable boy. I still think I'm not quite there yet, but yeah, I mean, Hunter showed a lot of stuff that you really wanted to see from him. And it's not like he had a great game. He 3 of 4 from 3, scored 12 points on 7 attempts. But, scoring average went down today for DeAndre. So, but I really liked all the little things he was doing. I loved the physicality at the point of attack. Definitely could see a few of the things, there were a couple of plays where, Gobert shoved him and got positioned for a rebound, where he probably needed to hit Gobert first. Like there's little things to nitpick for sure, but like about as nice of a debut within a team context as you can want. Obviously it would be crazy if he scored like 25 or 30 at his debut, but short of a high volume game, I thought this was I don't know. Maybe this is a silly way to frame it, but like I think you can have a debut game like this where you only take 7 shots, and it's like, okay, I didn't really feel him out there, but that's okay because he was just trying to fit in and learn the context that he's playing in. I didn't feel that. I felt Hunter in all 23 of his minutes.
Yeah, and I do think one of the biggest differences, and maybe this, not to go on another rant, because nobody wants to hear another rant about shooting over guys, but I think one of the biggest differences when you talk about other guys that the Cavs have is, if probably the best way to explain this is, if Darius is closing out on Tatum or whoever is closing out on Boston's wings, they're not going to change whether or not that shot's going up. DeAndre Hunter is disruptive in that way. And I think what you've seen from the Cavs in the past is when they struggle against length, it is Darius and Donovan second guessing whether or not they should get that shot up. And, the ball had a little bit of momentum. Maybe it got there a half second late. There's a closeout from a DeAndre Hunter-like player. And all right, now I'm dribbling and we're scrambling to try to get a good shot on this possession. DeAndre created those possessions against the Timberwolves. There were so many of those where it's like, man, this can just be a nightmare. Like what he can do with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen there is really, really disruptive. I think you have the makings of a championship defense and a championship front court there. And I think that's part of my incentive of, all right, let's try to get as many minutes of this as we can here, because
the upside might be the highest.
Yeah. And, I have felt that is the best chance at a really, really dominant lineup. And it wasn't all perfect on the defensive end. As I said, they played 11 minutes together, the first 6.5 or 7 minutes, including the stretch of the second half. They did not allow a single point. Then they allowed 22 points in 5 minutes. So, little hit and miss, little all over the place. But, it was still an effective lineup for the time that they were there. 123.8 offensive rating, 110 defensive rating, so plus 14 on the night. That's really good for a debut, especially when I felt there were times when they were kind of feeling it out defensively. And like I said at the top of this episode, that was the 6th ranked defense coming in. And not only is that the 6th ranked defense, their defensive liabilities were the ones that were out of the lineup. Julius Randle was not there. Dante DiVincenzo was not there. Guys that you could potentially take advantage of. The Cavs navigated
of an old man Mike Conley as well.
I didn't want to include him in the defensive liabilities
He's
category.
Old and small.
But yeah, like him not being in the lineup meant that Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is
was
very
a bulldog,
long, was out there. Yes. So I thought it was really, really good to see, once again, the Cavs perform well offensively against a defense like that. I think it's correct to say that they've struggled versus length at times this season, But I think it's also important to point out they have had a lot of success against very long, good defenses as well. We just want to see it on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, I mean, we want to win all the games, and you want to beat the best teams in the league. Minnesota is not one of the best teams in the league, but they, as you pointed out, their defense is quite stout. The Cavs were able to generate really, really clean looks, and this was a game where I kind of felt like, especially in the first half, they were almost like underperforming their output, and they scored 66 in the first half. Like, I thought they were getting clean looks pretty much whenever they wanted. Yep. And it just took a minute for the machine to kick into gear. But yeah, man, I don't know. I left this game just being like, Dean, no Okoro, no Max, and we just felt so big and imposing. And we still have so many, chess pieces to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just as we said at the beginning of the pod, it just felt like a proof of concept kind of game.
Yeah, it's very clear that DeAndre Hunter is now in a situation where he is able to do his best work, which, it's kind of like us with Zoom and Zoom AI Companion, because only you can do your best work, Carter. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible P plans or Cappy with Zoom AI Companion. You know who's working happy despite the length of Minnesota? Evan Mobley. Woo! Holy crap. Like, we had to start with DeAndre Hunter because he was making his debut and there were so many fun moments. I loved him hitting that 3 over Rudy. To your point about him drawing free throws, he got 4 in his 22 minutes. That almost never happens for Cavaliers. So there was a lot of fun things there. But Evan Mobley was flat out dominant. He has been since that game against Boston where he struggled, he has been on one. He was dominant with 28 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks, 2 steals. And that's just been what he's been doing these last few games. I thought it was as good as I've seen him look all season. I thought he was dominant defensively. I thought he was assertive offensively against a very long, very good defender in Rudy Gobert. That's the type of dominant, aggressive performance you want to see against an elite long defender.
The offense was good, but the defense was bananas. He was erasing them at the rim. I mean, the kind of contests, like, Evan is such a fundamental player, and he gets a lot of flowers for just not being in the wrong spot and, making shots hard. This was a demoralizing defensive game for Evan, where he was wiping out shots at the rim. Minnesota would think they had a step, think they had position, and he would just decimate them at the rim. I mean, and it was like over and over, especially in that first half. It was just like possession by possession by possession of him just ruining the game plan. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's where Minnesota misses a Mike Conley to just to organize them and get them cleaner looks. I think there's a reason Joe Ingles was one of the guys who gave them really good minutes, because it was anyone that can pass someone wide open, because if we're kind of open.
I think Ant was getting frustrated, and it led to some tunnel vision from a playmaking standpoint.
Yeah, well, I think they definitely had I think they weren't generating wide open shots, and every contested shot was one of those "I'm going to destroy you" possessions from Evan. So it was the perfect storm for him to just continue to get the ball funneled straight to him to wipe them out. It was just a masterclass on that side of the floor, and I know we've spent a lot of time this season, rightfully so, talking about Evan's offensive development, seeing the growth he's kind of shown on that end of the floor. But man, is he just an unbelievable defender on a night where he's got it going like this.
Yeah, he really deserves to be that Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I think without a doubt. I think when you look at the difference with him on court versus off court, considering that Jared Allen makes up those off-court minutes, it's unbelievable the impact that he has. Just even him poking away, I feel like he's being more aggressive of kind of understanding when someone's got their back to him and exposing the ball, like he's going to have those active hands. He's going to poke those away. The steals, the blocks, everything was there on the defensive end. But I keep coming back to the offense because I thought there were times where it was very clear that the length of the Celtics was giving Mobley trouble, right? We talked about how that's something that he needs to get better at. And when you go up against a Rudy Gobert and a Naz Reid, two fantastic defenders, look at the numbers since Julius Randle's been out. That lineup has been crushing people, and they've been doing it primarily on the defensive end. For him to go up against a player that is longer than Kristaps Porzingis, and for him to also have his shot blocked a couple times, like his early takes, there was a few times where he thought he had the turnaround. Naz Reid came up and blocked it, which goes to show you what a ridiculous defender Naz Reid is to accomplish that. But he didn't let
He's really come up, by the way. Naz was not a good defender early in his career. I feel like he's gotten a lot better on that side of the floor.
He absolutely has. And he had a bit of an up and down start to the season. He's really, regaining that form. But for Mobley to not get discouraged from those, block shots and the possessions that didn't go as well early, and to continue to be aggressive and to really go for their throat, I thought that was a really, really encouraging sign, right? Like, you're only going to play the Celtics so many times, but you can practice this in some of these games where, hey, this is where it is successful against a very similar type of defensive presence to what you're going to see against the Kristaps Porzingis. As for Al Horford, like Horford's the same height as DeAndre Hunter, maybe shorter. So I don't understand that matchup outside of just the smarts of Horford. But I thought the type of assertiveness and the way that he was finishing in this game is something that is they'd be able to replicate in a game against Boston.
I think he also did a lot of his work on the position as he caught the ball. There were a lot of plays where he was really cutting with a lot of ferocity and cutting to his spot. So to force a hard contest, not just a hands up straight contest, but a hard contest where they had to step towards him. And that's where once you have to take the step, once you lose the ability to jump with him, he can pivot through and yam or put it up on the other side of the hoop. Like, I just feel like he did a nice job he played a really cerebral offensive game, despite not having a ton of jumpers or anything like that, or like a ton of like on ball attacks, though he did have quite a few. He ran some breaks and, went into guys' chests a few times. But a lot of it I felt like was a lot of, I'm going to catch it with such an advantage that the play is kind of a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. And I thought the off-ball attacks from him too, like he's finding those soft spots in the defense and going up quickly. I didn't feel that he was consistently going up quickly in that game against Boston. So I just thought all around it was a great performance from him. And, his front court mate in Jared Allen was phenomenal as well. I thought Jared was really aggressive early, getting a lot of those rebounds, those second chance opportunities. He's up to the best rebound rate of his career, believe it or not. And it's primarily been on the defensive end. He's not at the best offensive rebound rate, still a little bit below where he was last year there. But the overall rebound rate is the best mark of his career. And I really feel in particular, I don't have the splits for the last couple months, but I feel that emphasis he's had on the offensive glass. Like, it really seems he's going more out of his way to generate those possessions, scrambling for loose balls, throwing it back in the play, tipping it out. And it was really fun to see, especially those minutes, those small ball minutes with Jalen Tyson out there, where you just have two guys that have the nose for those extra possessions, just tipping at it and annoying the hell out of the Timberwolves and creating those extra chances. It's just really, really fun to see Jared commit himself to that, because I think that's one of those things that can potentially swing a series, right? Like, if we can discover a little bit of an edge with him on the offensive glass and give the best offense in history even more touches, and, if you have to call on someone like Jalen Tyson, yeah, the offensive polish isn't going to be there. I mean, he's going to fumble a fast break opportunity, but he's going to give you some extra possessions.
You sweet boy. We thought you had it.
Hey, he made up for it with that corner three. That was a lot of fun. And then was followed up by a ridiculous Ty Jerome play, because Ty Jerome is just awesome.
Yes.
But seeing that emphasis from those guys and knowing that was something that Kenny had said that he wants to see from the team, it's definitely something that I'm continuing to keep my eye on.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think to some extent it's always going to be a little symptomatic of the offense. Like Tristan was a guy at his best where no matter what the offense was doing, he was going to generate a lot of extra looks for you. I think Jarrett is getting 2016 Golden State offensive rebounds where it's like your defense is so discombobulated trying to guard the Cavs that you're not in box out position, that you've ended up switching a guard onto Jarrett or a wing onto Jarrett, and all he's got to do is have decent feel and jump high, and he's going to get the ball.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to downplay his effort at all, but to complement the overall structure that the Cavs have right now, where, again, I said it in terms of how Hunter was going to fit on defense. I just think it's easy to play Cavs basketball right now. Like, if you're a pretty good offensive rebounder, you're going to be a great one here. If you're a pretty good defender, you're going to be a great one here. And, like, that's the mark of, like, truly good teams, truly great teams, is, like, everyone is their fully actualized self. I think we've seen that with so many great teams over the years where it's a guy who's just like, the way I was down on Boston going into last year, because I'm like, are they really going to be able to count on Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard and Old Man Horford? And, like, the second you see them play, it's like, oh, of course they're fine.
Yeah.
Like, of course this team, this Celtics team is built to, like, accentuate their strengths. And I just kind of feel that way about this Cavs team. Like, I just don't know if all these guys are having this great of a season if they're in different contexts, which is like, yeah, of course, and I'm not saying that to rob credit from any individual, but I just think this is the ultimate greater than the sum of their parts team. And I think that's why both of us are so freaking fond of them.
Yeah, and you obviously have to give credit to the front office for putting this team together. But I think some of it is honestly good fortune, right? Like, you can only control there's only so much you can control in the team building process. Really, what you're trying to do is acquire the best talent that's available to you, and you can be somewhat selective, but what those opportunities are when they come up, like, that's hard to get a feel for. And I think when you look at the top of this roster, right, where Donovan Mitchell came in and he has worked his ass off trying to, continue to adjust and evolve his game to fit what's going on. I think we're really, really fortunate that Darius is so good playing both on and off ball. And, like, that was one of the things that we talked about very early on when it was like him, Sexton, and Kevin Porter Jr. We're like, hey, the best thing about trying to build around Darius is his game is malleable. Like, no matter what talent you're trying to acquire, you can get the best available talent because he's going to be able to play on with a ball dominant wing or a ball dominant guard or a big man. Like, if you were able to acquire like a Jokic type, you could count on him to be successful and feed off of that type of player. And then Evan Mobley is, low maintenance as it comes from a star perspective. Jared Allen is low maintenance as it comes from an all-star level role player. And,
I didn't expect to be low maintenance was Donnie, and he's been very low maintenance this year.
Right.
And over his tenure, but especially this year.
Yeah, and that's why I started with him, right? Like, I think that he has sacrificed the most both on and off court. I don't think it's really sacrifice. I think it's more just the maturity and understanding of, hey, we got to win as a collective here. And I think when you look at even just acquiring someone like Ty Jerome, didn't work out last year, but it's very clear. Hit it out of the park there from an on-court and off-court standpoint. He's someone that brings fire, and honestly, his strong play helped enable the ability to go for a DeAndre Hunter. The fact that you can trust him to run those second units and take over basically those Karras ball handling reps full time as a reserve. If you don't have that in place, maybe you don't feel as comfortable going out and getting a DeAndre Hunter. If you don't have Craig Porter Jr. emerge and give you really solid minutes lately, and obviously what we saw from him last year, you probably don't feel as comfortable. So I think it's been really, really fortunate that, the best available talent has also been personalities that fit so well.
Yeah. And during Kobe's media availability after the trade, I asked him, I was like, how much of this is a vote of you're trading two beloved dudes out of the locker room. How much of a vote of confidence is this in your core, in these top 4 dudes that are like to be your standard bearers culturally? And he basically said that's what Kenny told them. At shoot around, as everyone's kind of processing the emotions of losing 2 beloved teammates. And yeah, man, I don't know. This team, we make the nice young men joke a lot with this team, but they really are, and it goes to me, it goes to show what that can enable. Yeah. There's so many roads up the team building mountain, and I think, and that's in terms of archetype, in terms of playing style and stuff like that, but it's also in terms of the kinds of dudes you pick up to play for your team. And like this selfless team has enabled them to go get a guy like Hunter, who is, who can be his best self very, very quickly. So I don't know, man, I'm over the moon. For whatever reason, this game, maybe it was the 16-0 start. Maybe it's just been their answer after the Boston loss. But, so they lose 3 in a row. We're like, oh, God, this feels terrible. Then they've now won 7 of their last 8. Like, this team just knows how to answer. And they've answered in really dominant fashion. They beat Detroit by 19, Miami by 20, the Hawks by 22, the Mavericks by 43. Then they lose to the Celtics, squeak out a win against the Pistons, and then beat the Wizards by 10, the T-Wolves by 21. Like, they're just, every time I start wondering, like, is there going to be a little drop off? Are they going to have, like, are they going to settle into a new normal? They just snap right back to we're world beaters again. And I'm really, really geeked to see that. I'm really, really proud of this team. And, like, they're heading into the All-Star break with a chance to be 44-10.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts.
If they win the game Wednesday versus Toronto, they're going to be on pace for a 67-win season, which would be a franchise record. Like, this is a really, really damn good team. And I've said it before, but this is the most fun that I've had watching a Cavs regular season. And
I'm so there.
And I think, some of that is what I've said before, where 2009, I was playing a lot of basketball then. I missed a lot of games. I didn't have access to League Pass the way I did. Part of it is, the expectations, right? Like, it's a different level of expectations coming off.
The win total was 48.5.
We almost hit that by the All-Star break.
So close.
That's obscene. Oh man, I don't do sports betting, but the one thing I do bet on is Cavs overs when I see it be that ridiculous, and it's gone well for me the last couple of years. But yeah, man, like this has just been so much damn fun, and to really feel like you have a chance to potentially win a championship here, and if not this year, continue to compete as long as this team can stay healthy and continue to grow together. It's a really special place to be in. And I think also for, to kind of reflect back, and I'm sure Darius and Evan have to feel this too. Like, you get drafted by the team, there was a lot of, Kobe was really giving a vote of confidence for those guys. When Darius signed that extension, there was a real kind of vote of confidence there. Hey, this is the first, he led us to a winning season here. We believe, Evan Mobley can reach these heights. And for the team to back that up, to go out and get a Donovan Mitchell, to continue to be aggressive in free agency, to find a way to convert Jetty Osman and Lamar Stevens into Max Strus to give them some depth, to go out and get a Karis LeVert, to go get a DeAndre Hunter. Like, the Hoop Collective likes to say actions over words. They believed in what those guys can do and the steps that they could take forward. And they've invested in that, right? And I think that that's not something you should take for granted, especially when, you look at other teams at the top of the standings, and like Memphis got worse to cut cuss. I can't talk.
Are you okay?
Cut costs.
Kendrick Perkins, Moses Moody.
Wow, that is tough. Wow, that's unbelievable. I just couldn't believe a team at the top of the standings would do such moves. But
I'm gonna have to finish the pod solo as you just collapse over there.
Into a puddle like
oh my
that's
gosh,
unbelievable. But you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, even Boston cut from their roster. They traded Jaden Springer, who the fans were really excited about, and they traded him to cut costs. Like, this is see how you do it.
Yeah, I just think it's a really great place to be in it. And circling back to that point about Ty Jerome, I think maybe part of why I feel okay with, hey, if we are starting Hunter and Wade is out of the lineup, maybe we can go with Jalen Tyson. Maybe we can try some different things, maybe even, some small ball Okoro or Max there if we have to, but just get Hunter those minutes with the starters. Part of why I feel so good about that is Ty is such a steady hand as a backup. Like, you're not really dealing with the same variance that you had when Karis LeVert is out there as a ball handler. Like, I think even tonight where you see, if that's Karis and Darius out there, I think Darius is still on ball for a lot of those kind of one guard minutes when Donovan's off court. Getting him some easier off ball looks and those catch and shoot threes, those opportunities against a very long defense, I think that just buys you a little bit of energy. I think it just makes things easier for them. And maybe that's why I just feel more comfortable with some volatility potentially with playing a rookie in Tyson. If you know that you have a steady hand there at the other positions, it just insulates you a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, this team was playing at points last year. They were playing sometimes 20 minutes a game of point guard because the guard room was so decimated. And, now they're up to a cool 48, Ty Jerome's going to give you 24. Darius is going to give you 27. Donovan doesn't I said that in the wake of the trade was that Donovan just gets to play all of his minutes at the 2. And as good as I think Donovan's been playing at the 1, I think he's at his best when he gets to play the 2, and that trade in so many ways, I think, just allows everyone to slot into the best version of themselves. And that's something that maybe I've missed a little bit, is that I've spent so much time talking about how I think the Cavs are kind of an easy context for Hunter, but I think Hunter, that trade and the way it reshaped the roster, makes everyone else slot into their just right spot. Yeah.
And one of the areas that I'm also excited to kind of track, if he does end up starting, it seemed like, at least if we're looking at the substitution pattern for this one game, he kept him out there with Darius and Jarrett. And that has been the lineup that those two, even though it's been really good when it's Darius and Jared, just the two of them, they've struggled on the defensive end. And I still believe some of that is noise and opponent shooting and whatnot. But that is a combination that could use a little bit more defensive presence. And I'm interested to see if that is what ends up happening, if that normalizes that lineup a little bit more, right? Like, we're so good. We have all these different combinations that work so well. But if we can make one of them better, if we can, remove one of the weaknesses of those lineups by having DeAndre Hunter out there as a 4 rather than George Niang or whomever else, I think it's primarily been Niang because he's always been healthy. But that lineup has seen a lot of volatility and a lot of different guys used in those minutes. Having Hunter as a stabilizing presence and the 3 of them out there, I'm really interested to see the results. If you look at the lineup data for the 3 of them playing together, they had a 106 defensive rating for the night. And if you take into account, the 11 minutes when it was all the starters was 110, that means that lineup was probably about 101 when it was just the 3 of them. So it's very, 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 very small sample. But I just think theoretically that's something I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, I mean, once this team, I'm really excited to see after the All-Star break. I'm playing the assuming game, which I know is a dangerous one, but with the Fedor report today, with Okoro getting shots up after practice, it does feel
dribbling
like
the hell out of the ball at the end of the quarter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. But like I feel like we haven't even really gotten to see Kenny play, and I felt like I was waiting on trying to find a way to frame this. I felt like going into prior while we were waiting for Max to get healthy, and then once Max came back and we were waiting on the other guys to get healthy, I kind of was waiting on everyone to get healthy just to kind of see the team just be the best version of itself. Like, okay, we're all good at these things, and now we'll be great at them once these guys come back. I feel like now I'm waiting for them to be great at 6 different things. Like they have, like, I'm excited to see all the different lineups. Like, do you play when you only have one big on one of the 2 centers on the floor? Do you play Dean and Hunter together? Do you play Okoro at the 2 and just say, defense, we're going to kill you? Like, I just feel like you have all these different specialization lineups to pull the trigger on without having to give up a ton, without having to over specialize where you're putting something on the table but taking something else off. I just feel like they have a ton of optionality. They have so many lineups they can run out that I'm going to like, and it's going to be real fun.
Yeah, I felt like we were kind of deprived of the opportunity. Kenny has had tough decisions because there's been so many people playing well, but he never really got that game where everybody was healthy, right? The only game where everyone on the active roster was available was the OKC one, and Okoro was dealing with the shoulder. Mobley had the calf issue in that game, and it just got out of hand. We didn't get to see, okay, well, how much would George play if everyone's healthy and we're playing against Boston? What does that rotation look like? Does Sam play? Like, we never got to learn any of that. And I'm really interested and hopeful to see after the All-Star break if we're going to see the full lineup. What does Kenny start to do? And to your point, I just don't feel like when I look at all these theoretical lineups and the various combinations that Kenny can use, I really don't feel like any of them are giving too much up on either end of the floor. And I'm really, really interested to see how he deploys them and what kind of the offensive and defensive evolution is, right? We touched on it just a little bit in the last game, or on the last podcast, but if Okoro's primarily playing at the 2, do we finally see him like used as a full court press guy? Like, is he just going to hound someone bringing up the ball? You can't really do that when you're defending the 3 and you're running to the corner defensively. So I think those are the type of things that I'm interested to see, the remainder of the year. But I also just want to see this team remain healthy and get out of the All-Star break being the best version of themselves.
And what a showcase we're going to have. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously the new All-Star format's kind of strange, and, we'll figure out how it works. But, like, it'll just be nice having a vested interest both on Saturday and Sunday, because we got DG in the 3-point contest. I mean, we'll touch on All-Star game stuff. I know we got one more pod before the break, but man, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Mobley and Donnie in the skills contest. We got a full weekend. We just Jalen needed to be in the Rising Stars game. Come on, NBA.
It's fine. We can't have everything.
Yeah, they should have just taken my word for it. I know he hasn't played a ton this year, but look at Summer League. Go look at Summer League. That should have been enough to get him in. I'm insane. Just like everyone staying up to listen to us ramble and rant. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of their view to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.